The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the star lanes for over 3,000 years. Their sleek silver ships moved through space like predators through deep water, striking fear into any species that dared challenge their dominance. Admiral Kethavar stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, his four arms crossed behind his back as he gazed at the tactical display showing their latest conquest. The mining colony on Kepler 442b had fallen in less than 6 hours. The human settlers had put up a pathetic resistance with their primitive kinetic weapons and outdated shields. Now the survivors huddled in detention camps while Zephyrian mining equipment stripped their world bare of the rare metals that had drawn both species to this distant system. Admiral, Communications Officer Veltrix reported, her voice carrying the typical Zephyrian tone of superiority. We're receiving surrender transmissions from the remaining human outposts in this sector. 17 colonies are requesting terms. Kethavar's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. Humans were predictable creatures. Show them overwhelming force once, and they crumbled like dried leaves. It had been the same story on every world the Empire had claimed from them over the past decade. Standard terms, he commanded. Total evacuation within 72 hours. Any resistance will be met with orbital bombardment. These humans learn slowly, but they do learn. The bridge crew buzzed with approval. The Zephyrians had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy, but humans had proven to be among the most disappointing. No honor in battle, no clever tactics, no hidden weapons or technologies. They simply built their small colonies, mined their resources, and surrendered when faced with superior firepower. Unlike the crystalline hive, which had required a brutal 50-year war to subdue, or the Voidwalkers who had nearly destroyed 2 entire fleets with their dimensional weapons, humans offered nothing but token resistance. Their ships were slow and clunky. Their weapons were basic projectile and energy systems that any cadet could outmaneuver. Their military doctrine seemed to revolve around hoping their enemies would simply go away. Admiral, Tactical Officer. Zarjan interrupted his thoughts. Long-range sensors are detecting an approaching vessel. Classification unknown. Kethavar's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display. A single contact was moving toward their position at sublight speeds. The signature didn't match any known Zephyrian vessel, nor did it resemble the typical human. Cargo haulers and light frigates they'd been swatting aside for months. Size and configuration? He demanded. Approximately 8 kilometers in length, Zarjan reported, his voice betraying a hint of confusion. Mass readings are irregular. The ship appears to be constructed of some unknown metal alloy. No energy. Signatures detected, but there are massive power readings deep within the hull structure. 8 kilometers. That was larger than most Zephyrian dreadnoughts, yet no human vessel in their databases exceeded 2 kilometers. The Empire's intelligence networks were thorough. Every human world, every shipyard, every military installation had been catalogued and analyzed. There were no secrets left in human space. Origin? Kethavar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The vessel emerged from the direction of Sol system, Admiral. Based on trajectory and acceleration patterns, it appears to be of human construction. The bridge fell silent. Sol system was the human homeworld, a heavily populated but technologically backward system that the Empire had marked for future conquest, but considered low priority. Intelligence reports suggested it was defended by nothing more than a collection of orbital platforms and a handful of outdated cruisers. Perhaps it's some kind of merchant vessel, suggested Science Officer Meldra. Humans are known for building oversized cargo ships. The mass readings could be explained by a full hold. But Kethavar wasn't convinced. Something about this felt wrong. In his centuries of military service, he'd learned to trust his instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming warnings. Fleet status? He ordered. 12 dreadnoughts, 37 cruisers, and 85 frigates currently in system, his operations officer reported. All vessels at standard readiness. More than enough to handle a single unknown contact regardless of its size. The Zephyrian fleet that had conquered this sector represented enough firepower to reduce an entire world to molten slag within hours. No single ship, no matter how large, could pose a meaningful threat. Yet as Kethavar watched the approaching vessel on his screens, He found himself remembering stories his grandfather had told him about the early days of Zephyrian expansion. Tales of encounters with species that seemed harmless until they revealed hidden capabilities. The ethereal collective had appeared to be peaceful energy beings until they demonstrated their ability to possess and control other species. The machine gods had initially been dismissed as primitive robots until their hidden manufacturing capabilities turned entire star systems into weapon factories overnight. But humans weren't like those ancient enemies. The Empire had been fighting humans for decades. They'd analyzed their technology, studied their tactics, captured their officers for interrogation. Humans were exactly what they appeared to be, a young, weak species that had barely managed to colonize a few dozen worlds before encountering their superiors. "Time to intercept?" Kethavar asked. "At current velocity, the unknown vessel will reach the edge of our sensor perimeter in approximately 4 hours, Zargan reported. "Very well. Continue monitoring. When it reaches communication range, we'll offer them the same terms we gave the others. Surrender and evacuation, or orbital bombardment of their homeworld." But even as he spoke the words, Kethavar couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was about to change. The approaching ship moved with a purpose that seemed different from the desperate flights of refugee vessels they'd been intercepting. There was something deliberate about its course, something that suggested its crew knew exactly what they were flying toward. He pushed the concerns aside. The Zephyrian Empire had crushed 47 species across the galaxy. Whatever secrets this human vessel might be carrying, they would simply become another footnote in the long history of Imperial conquest. After all, what could one ship do against the might of an entire fleet? The skies belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, and no primitive human vessel was going to change that fundamental truth. The unknown contact continued its steady approach, and Admiral Kethavar returned his attention to more immediate concerns. The mining operations on the conquered world needed oversight, and there were supply lines to establish. By the time the human ship arrived, this would all be routine Imperial business. He had no way of knowing that routine was about to become a very dangerous assumption. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the UES Retribution, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet ahead. 134 enemy vessels arranged in a standard Imperial formation, their silver hulls gleaming like predators basking in the light of Kepler 442's star. "Captain," her tactical officer Lieutenant Commander Park reported, "we're receiving multiple targeting locks from the enemy fleet. They're trying to paint us with active sensors." "Let them look," Chen replied calmly. "How long until we reach optimal firing position?" 47 minutes at current velocity, Captain." Chen nodded, her expression betraying nothing of the cold fury burning inside her chest. She'd read the reports from the refugees who had escaped Kepler 442b before the orbital bombardment began. Families torn apart, children separated from parents, entire settlements reduced to ash because the Zephyrians wanted the mineral deposits beneath their homes. The aliens had made one critical mistake in their calculations. They had assumed humanity would react like their previous conquests. They expected surrender, evacuation, and acceptance of Imperial rule. What they hadn't anticipated was that humans had a very specific response to bullies who targeted civilians. "Incoming transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel," Communications Officer Torres announced. "They're demanding we identify ourselves and state our intentions." "Put them through," Chen ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the angular features of Admiral Kethavar. His 4 eyes regarded her with the same expression Chen imagined a shark might wear when examining a particularly small fish. "Human vessel," Kethavar began, his translator rendering his words in flat, emotionless English. "You are approaching Imperial territory without authorization. I am Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Empire. Identify yourself and explain your presence in this system." Chen stepped forward, making sure her captain's insignia were clearly visible on her uniform. "Admiral Kethavar, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Retribution. We're here to discuss the terms of your immediate withdrawal from human space." The silence that followed lasted several seconds. When Kethavar finally responded, his mandibles clicked in what Chen recognized as alien laughter. "Captain Chen, I believe you may not fully understand your situation. You command a single vessel facing the might of an entire Imperial fleet. Perhaps you should reconsider your discussion topics. Oh, I understand our situation perfectly, Admiral, Chen replied, her voice remaining level despite the rage building inside her. The question is whether you understand yours. She gestured to Lieutenant Commander Park, who began entering commands into his tactical console. On the main display, a detailed readout appeared showing the exact position, classification, and armament of every Zephyrian ship in the system. Kethvar's expression shifted slightly. Chen could see the moment when he realized that her ship's sensors had penetrated every stealth system, every electronic countermeasure, every piece of defensive technology his fleet possessed. Impressive sensor technology, the Admiral admitted. But sensors don't win battles, Captain. I have 134 ships under my command. Even if your vessel possesses advanced reconnaissance capabilities, you are still vastly outnumbered. Admiral, Chen said, her tone taking on a distinctly dangerous edge. Let me share something that your intelligence networks apparently missed during your research on humanity. She paused, letting her words hang in the space between them before continuing. You've been fighting our colony worlds, small settlements with minimal defenses and outdated equipment. Local militias trying to protect their families with whatever weapons they could manufacture or purchase. What you haven't encountered yet is the actual United Earth Navy. Kethvar's four eyes narrowed. Impossible. Our intelligence operations have mapped every human military installation. Your homeworld possesses no significant naval assets. Your intelligence operations, Chen said with a cold smile, have been looking in all the wrong places. She turned to her communications officer. Torres, transmit authentication code Omega-7 to Earth Command. Tell them we're ready to begin the demonstration. Authentication code confirmed, Captain, Torres reported after a moment. Earth Command acknowledges. Operation Revelation is authorized. Chen looked back at the alien admiral whose expression had shifted from condescending amusement to genuine concern. You see, Admiral, humanity learned something very important. During our expansion into space, we learned that the galaxy is full of species who believe that might makes right. Species who think that superior technology gives them the right to take whatever they want from weaker civilizations. On the tactical display, new contacts began appearing throughout the system. At first just a few scattered signatures, but within minutes the display showed dozens of massive vessels decloaking around the Zephyrian fleet. Kethvar's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. So we made a decision. Chen continued conversationally. We decided that if we were going to survive out here, we needed to be ready for exactly this kind of encounter. We needed to be ready for empires like yours. The newly revealed ships were unlike anything in the Zephyrian databases. Massive angular constructions bristling with weapon systems that radiated power signatures beyond anything the Empire had encountered. Stealth technology that had rendered them completely invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. Most disturbing of all, their formation suggested they had been in position long before the Retribution had even entered the system. What you've been fighting, Chen explained, are our civilians, our farmers and miners and engineers who just wanted to build new lives on distant worlds. What you're looking at now is what happens when you threaten our civilians. Admiral Kethvar found his voice. This is impossible. Our scouts surveyed this system thoroughly. There were no human military vessels detected. Of course there weren't, Chen replied. Because we've been preparing for this conversation since the day your empire first attacked a human colony. Every world you've conquered, every family you've displaced, every civilian you've killed has been noted and cataloged. And we've been building. She gestured toward the tactical display where more ships continued to decloak, revealing a human fleet that dwarfed the Zephyrian forces by a factor of 3 to 1. So here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You're going to order your ships to stand down. You're going to withdraw from every human world you've occupied, and you're going to return every human civilian currently held in your detention facilities. Kethvar's four arms trembled slightly. And if we refuse? Captain Chen's expression didn't change, but something cold and implacable entered her eyes. Then you're going to discover why humans don't build monuments to our enemies, Admiral. We build monuments to our dead. And right now your empire has given us far too many dead to memorialize. The bridge of the Retribution fell silent, except for the quiet hum of systems operating at full readiness. Outside, the combined might of the United Earth Navy waited for their captain's orders. Their weapon systems charged and targeting solutions locked onto every Zephyrian vessel in the system. The age of imperial expansion had just encountered something it had never faced before. A species that had been preparing for this moment since the first shot was fired. Admiral Kethavar's tactical display painted a picture that violated every principle of warfare he'd learned during his 3 centuries of military service. The human fleet hadn't just appeared from nowhere. According to his sensor readings, they had been positioned throughout the system for hours, possibly days, completely invisible to Zephyrian detection systems. "Admiral," his sensor officer whispered, her voice barely audible. "Power readings from the human vessels are off our measurement scales. Whatever they're using for propulsion and weapon systems, it's generating energy signatures we've never encountered before." Kethavar forced himself to maintain composure, even as his strategic mind raced through increasingly desperate scenarios. The Zephyrian Empire had built its dominance on superior technology and overwhelming force. Every species they'd conquered had eventually been outmatched by imperial engineering and tactical doctrine, but the vessels surrounding his fleet defied every assumption about human technological capabilities. The Retribution alone was generating power readings equivalent to a Zephyrian battle station. The other ships, some even larger than the flagship, were displaying capabilities that shouldn't have been possible for a species that had barely achieved interstellar flight a few centuries ago. "Captain Chen," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady, "I believe there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of imperial expansion. The Zephyrian Empire has always been willing to negotiate with species that demonstrate appropriate respect for our authority." Chen's expression didn't change. "Admiral, let me clarify something for you. We're not negotiating. We're informing you of what's about to happen. The only question is whether you're going to cooperate or whether we're going to have to demonstrate why that would be the wiser choice." She turned to her weapons officer. "Commander Hayes, bring all forward batteries to full charge. Target their flagship." "Aye, Captain." Forward batteries charged and locked on target. On every Zephyrian ship, proximity alarms began screaming as targeting systems detected the energy buildup from human weapons. But the readings made no sense. The power signatures suggested weapon systems that could punch through Imperial shielding like it was made of paper. Kethavar's communications officer looked up from her console, her 4 eyes wide with something approaching panic. "Admiral, we're being painted by targeting systems from every human vessel simultaneously. They have firing solutions on our entire fleet." "Impossible," Kethavar muttered. "No species has the computational power to coordinate targeting for that many vessels in real time." But even as he spoke, he knew he was wrong. The evidence was right there on his screens. Every Zephyrian ship was locked in the crosshairs of multiple human vessels, and the targeting systems were tracking with precision that exceeded Imperial standards by orders of magnitude. Captain Chen continued as if she hadn't just effectively put a gun to the head of his entire fleet. "You mentioned respect for your authority, Admiral. Let me tell you about human authority. Every human colony you've attacked was under the protection of the United Earth government. Every civilian you've displaced was a citizen of our republic. Every mining operation you've seized was the lawful property of human corporations." She stepped closer to her communications pickup, and Kethavar found himself involuntarily backing away from the screen. "What you call expansion, we call piracy. What you call conquest, we call mass murder. What you call imperial authority, we call terrorism." "Captain," Kethavar said, his voice taking on a more desperate tone, "perhaps we can reach some accommodation. The Empire is vast, and there are many star systems that could be designated for human use. Surely there's no need for hostilities between our species." For the first time since the conversation began, Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral, I want you to understand something about human nature. We're a remarkably adaptable species. When faced with a new environment, we learn to survive in it. When faced with new technology, we learn to improve upon it. When faced with new enemies, we learn to defeat them." She gestured toward her tactical display, which now showed detailed breakdowns of Zephyrian ship configurations and weapon systems. "We've been studying your empire for months. Every engagement you've had with our colonies has been monitored and analyzed. Every ship design you've deployed has been cataloged and assessed. Every tactical doctrine you've employed has been countered and improved upon." Kethavar felt something cold settle in his chest as he began to understand what she was telling him. "You see, Admiral, humans have a saying, 'Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.' Your empire fooled us exactly once when you attacked our first colony. We thought we could coexist peacefully with other spacefaring species. We thought mutual cooperation was possible. Her expression hardened. You taught us otherwise, so we adapted. She turned to her engineering officer. Commander Kim, bring our main weapons online. Show the Admiral what we learned from studying his empire's technology. On the Retribution's hull, massive weapon emplacements began extending from concealed bays. Energy readings spiked to levels that caused Zephyrian sensors to display error messages rather than actual numbers. But it wasn't just the Retribution. Throughout the human fleet, ships were revealing weapon systems that had been hidden beneath stealth plating and holographic camouflage. Plasma cannons the size of city blocks, kinetic accelerators that could launch projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, energy weapons that drew power directly from miniaturized stellar cores. You wanted to know about human technology, Chen said conversationally. Here's what you missed in your intelligence assessments. Humanity doesn't just adapt to new challenges. We reverse engineer them, we improve upon them, and then we turn them against the people who taught us they were necessary. Kethvar's mind reeled as he processed the implications. Every piece of Zephyrian technology captured during colonial raids. Every weapon system analyzed from battlefield salvage. Every tactical innovation observed during Imperial attacks. All of it had been studied, understood, and incorporated into human military doctrine. But worse than that, the power readings suggested humans had done more than just copy Imperial technology. They had advanced it, perfected it, weaponized it on a scale that made Zephyrian engineering look primitive by comparison. This is a trick, he said, though his voice lacked conviction, some kind of sensor deception or holographic projection. Chen nodded to Commander Hayes, who entered a targeting solution into his console. A moment later, a precise beam of coherent energy lanced out from the Retribution and vaporized an asteroid roughly the size of a Zephyrian cruiser. The asteroid simply ceased to exist. No debris field, no expanding cloud of superheated gas. One moment it was there, and the next moment there was empty space where it had been. Not a trick, Admiral, Chen said quietly. Just a demonstration of what happens to things that get in humanity's way. Kethvar stared at the empty space where the asteroid had been, his mind struggling to process weapons technology that violated his understanding of physics. No known weapon system could completely disintegrate matter on that scale without leaving some trace of its existence. What do you want? He whispered. I told you what we want, Chen replied. Complete withdrawal from human space, return of all displaced civilians, reparations for damages caused during your illegal occupation of our worlds, she paused, letting her demands sink in before adding the final condition, and a formal apology from your emperor acknowledging that the Zephyrian Empire acted as pirates and terrorists against peaceful human settlements. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a full minute. When Kethvar finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of a military officer who had just realized his entire worldview was built on false assumptions. And if we comply with these demands? Chen's expression softened slightly, though her eyes remained cold and determined. Then you get to go home and explain to your emperor that the galaxy just became a much more dangerous place for anyone who thinks they can prey on human civilians. The Zephyrian Imperial Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Kethvar finished his report. Emperor Zaxthul sat motionless on his crystalline throne, his four eyes focused on the holographic display showing the tactical readouts from the Kepler 442 system. Around the circular chamber, the Empire's highest-ranking military officials and scientific advisors waited for their ruler's response. You're telling me, the Emperor said slowly, his voice echoing through the vast chamber, that a single human fleet destroyed 73 Imperial vessels without suffering a single casualty in return? Yes, Your Imperial Majesty, Kethvar replied, his shame evident despite his efforts to maintain military bearing. The human weapons technology exceeded our defensive capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Our shields were useless, our armor was ineffective, our evasive maneuvers were anticipated and countered before we could execute them. High Admiral Keltara leaned forward from her position at the council table. Explain to me how a species that couldn't defend a mining colony 6 months ago suddenly possesses weapons that can vaporize our dreadnoughts. Kethvar activated his personal display unit, projecting detailed sensor readings from the battle, According to our analysis, the humans have been conducting a systematic intelligence operation against the Empire since we began expanding into their space. Every engagement, every captured vessel, every piece of technology we deployed was being studied and reverse engineered. Chief Science Advisor Melketh examined the data with growing alarm. These power signatures are impossible. No known physics can account for energy generation on this scale from ships of these dimensions. That's what I told Captain Chen, Kethavar said grimly. She informed me that humans had apparently developed new physics. The Emperor's mandibles clicked in irritation. Species don't simply develop new physics, Admiral. Physics are universal constants. But even as he spoke, Zaxthul found himself staring at sensor readings that contradicted everything the Empire's scientists understood about energy generation, matter manipulation, and weapons technology. The human fleet had demonstrated capabilities that bordered on the impossible. Director of Imperial Intelligence Vex Allen consulted her data tablets before speaking. Your Majesty, we may have underestimated the scope of human technological development. Our intelligence networks focused on their colonial worlds and obvious military installations. If they were conducting advanced research in hidden facilities, we might not have detected it. Hidden facilities? The Emperor demanded. We mapped every human system in detail. Our long-range reconnaissance identified every significant installation in human space. With respect, Your Majesty, Vex Allen replied carefully, the human stealth technology was clearly far more advanced than we realized. If they could hide an entire fleet in the Kepler system without our sensors detecting them, they could certainly hide research facilities. High Admiral Keltara studied the tactical readouts with professional interest despite her growing unease. Admiral Kethvar, what were your impressions of Captain Chen? Was she operating under orders from a higher authority, or was this a rogue military action? Kethavar considered the question carefully. She spoke with the authority of someone representing an organized governmental response, High Admiral. This wasn't a desperate colony defense or a random military encounter. This was a planned demonstration of force designed to deliver a specific message. Which was? The Emperor asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. That humanity considers Imperial expansion into their space to be an act of war, Your Majesty, and that they are prepared to respond accordingly. The council chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. For 3 millennia, the Zephyrian Empire had expanded across the galaxy by identifying weaker species and overwhelming them with superior technology and tactics. It was a proven formula that had brought 47 different civilizations under Imperial control. But the humans had changed the fundamental equation. Instead of accepting their role as a conquered species, they had used the Empire's own attacks as intelligence-gathering opportunities. Every Imperial victory had actually been providing humans with data they needed to develop countermeasures. Science Advisor Melketh activated his own display, showing comparative analyses of Zephyrian and human technology. Your Majesty, based on these readings, I believe the humans have achieved breakthrough advances in several critical areas. Their energy generation systems appear to be based on controlled stellar fusion, possibly even matter-antimatter annihilation. Their weapon systems suggest mastery of exotic particles and quantum field manipulation. More importantly, High Admiral Keltara added grimly, their military doctrine appears to be designed specifically to counter Imperial tactics. They anticipated our formations, our weapon ranges, our defensive capabilities. This wasn't a lucky victory. This was a carefully planned demonstration of military superiority. Emperor Zaxthul rose from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the council chamber. Director Vex Allen, I want a complete reassessment of human capabilities. Map every system under their control, identify every possible research facility, and determine the true scope of their military forces. Yes, Your Majesty. However, given their demonstrated stealth capabilities, this may prove challenging. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting that our intelligence networks are inadequate, Director? I'm suggesting that we may be facing an opponent who has been preparing for this conflict longer and more thoroughly than we realized, Your Majesty. Admiral Kethvar cleared his throat respectfully. Your Majesty, there's another consideration. Captain Chen made it clear that this was not humanity's full military capability. She referred to the colonial militias we've been fighting as civilians and indicated that we had not yet encountered their actual navy. Meaning? The Emperor demanded. meaning the fleet that destroyed 73 Imperial vessels may represent only a fraction of human military strength. The silence that followed was deafening. Every member of the Imperial Council understood the implications. If the humans had been hiding the majority of their military capabilities, while allowing the Empire to believe they were fighting a fully committed enemy, then the strategic situation was far worse than anyone had imagined. High Admiral Keltera was the first to break the silence. Your Majesty, we need to consider the possibility that continuing this conflict may not be in the Empire's best interests. Emperor Zaxthul's 4 eyes blazed with imperial fury. Are you suggesting that the Zephyrian Empire should retreat from a species of primitives who learned to build spaceships 3 centuries ago? I'm suggesting, Your Majesty, that these primitives just demonstrated the ability to destroy our most advanced ships with weapons we don't understand using tactics we can't counter. Keltara replied steadily. We need to reassess our strategic position. The Emperor began pacing across the chamber, his massive claws clicking against the crystalline floor. For 3,000 years, Imperial expansion had been a simple matter of identifying targets, overwhelming them with superior force, and incorporating their resources into the Empire. The galaxy had been filled with species content to accept subjugation rather than face annihilation. But humans appeared to be different. Instead of accepting defeat, they had adapted. Instead of surrendering, they had prepared. Instead of submitting to Imperial authority, they had developed the capability to challenge it. Science advisor Melketh, the Emperor said finally, in your professional opinion, how long would it take our research facilities to develop countermeasures to human weapons technology? Melketh consulted his data tablets nervously. Based on the exotic physics involved, Your Majesty, possibly decades, possibly longer. We would need to completely rebuild our understanding of several fundamental principles. Admiral Kethvar, in your professional military opinion, what would be the likely outcome of a full-scale war between the Empire and humanity? Kethvar met his Emperor's gaze steadily. Uncertain, Your Majesty, but given their demonstrated technological advantages, and the fact that we still don't know the true extent of their capabilities, I would not recommend proceeding without significantly more intelligence. Emperor Zaxthul stopped pacing and turned to face his council. The decision he was about to make would reshape the Empire's relationship with the galaxy. Very well. Director Vex Allen, begin immediate intelligence gathering operations. I want to know everything about human military capabilities. High Admiral Keltara, suspend all operations in human space pending further analysis. He paused, his expression darkening. And send a message to Captain Chen. Tell her the Emperor of the Zephyrian Empire requests a formal diplomatic meeting. The age of easy conquest had just come to an abrupt end. The neutral station Concordia floated in the void between Imperial and human space, its massive structure serving as one of the galaxy's few truly independent diplomatic facilities. Built by the ancient mediator species before their mysterious disappearance, Concordia had hosted peace negotiations for countless conflicts over the past millennium. Captain Sarah Chen walked through the station's main corridor, her diplomatic escort maintaining respectful distance as they approached the primary conference chamber. Behind her, Admiral Marcus Rivera and Dr. Elizabeth Santos represented the military and scientific perspectives of the human delegation. Ahead of them waited representatives of an empire that had just discovered it might not be as dominant as it had believed for 3,000 years. Captain, Admiral Rivera said quietly, our intelligence suggests the Zephyrians are genuinely rattled by the Kepler demonstration. This might be our opportunity to establish terms that protect human space permanently. Chen nodded, but remained focused on the larger picture. Remember, Admiral, we're not just negotiating for current human territories. We're establishing precedent for how humanity will interact with the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. Dr. Santos consulted her datapad as they walked. The cultural analysis team has been working overtime to understand Zephyrian psychology. They respect strength above all else, but they also have a rigid hierarchy that makes backing down from commitments extremely difficult. We need to give them a way to retreat that doesn't compromise their internal authority structure. Understood, Chen replied. We demonstrate strength but offer them a path to save face. They get to go home and explain to their people that they encountered a worthy opponent rather than admitting they were outmatched by a primitive species. The conference chamber doors opened to reveal a circular, room with a massive holographic display at its center. Emperor Zaxthul sat at a throne-like chair carved from what appeared to be a single piece of crystalline material. His massive form dominated the Zephyrian side of the chamber, while his advisors arranged themselves in order of rank around their ruler. Chen had studied images of the Zephyrian emperor, but seeing him in person was still impressive. Nearly 3 meters tall with 4 powerful arms and the predatory grace of an apex species, Zaxthul radiated the kind of authority that came from millennia of absolute power. "Captain Chen," the emperor said, his translated voice carrying formal diplomatic tones rather than the condescending superiority she had heard from Admiral Kethvar. "The Zephyrian Empire appreciates your willingness to engage in diplomatic discussion." Chen took her seat across from the emperor, her expression respectful but firm. "Your Imperial Majesty, the United Earth government is committed to finding a peaceful resolution to the current conflict between our peoples." She paused deliberately before continuing, provided, of course, that such resolution includes full compensation for damages caused during the illegal occupation of human worlds and the immediate return of all displaced human civilians. Admiral Kethvar shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Chen noticed that the admiral who had been so confident during their first encounter now avoided making direct eye contact with her. Emperor Zaxthul activated the chamber's holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of the local galactic region. Human-controlled systems appeared in blue, while Imperial territories glowed in silver. The disputed zones where recent conflicts had occurred pulsed red between the 2 spheres of influence. "Captain Chen," the Emperor began, "the Zephyrian Empire has controlled these star lanes for 3 millennia. Our expansion into this region represents the natural extension of established Imperial authority." "Your Majesty," Chen replied calmly, "the regions you're referring to as natural extensions are sovereign human territories established through legal colonization and recognized by the Galactic Trade Consortium. Your forces attacked civilian populations without provocation or formal declaration of war." Dr. Santos activated her own display unit, projecting detailed records of Imperial attacks on human colonies. These are documented civilian casualties from Imperial operations over the past 6 months. 16,000 confirmed deaths, 43,000 displaced persons, and economic damages exceeding 2 trillion standard credits. The numbers hung in the air between the 2 delegations like an accusation. Emperor Zaxthul studied the data with what appeared to be genuine surprise. "These figures seem excessive," he said finally. "They're conservative estimates, Your Majesty," Chen replied. "Our full casualty reports are significantly higher." High Admiral Keltara leaned forward from her position at the Emperor's right hand. "Captain Chen, surely you understand that Imperial expansion has always involved some degree of population displacement. This is standard practice throughout the galaxy." Admiral Rivera spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. "Hi, Admiral. Perhaps that explains why humanity has developed such effective military capabilities. We don't consider the massacre of civilians to be standard practice." The tension in the chamber increased noticeably. Emperor Zaxthul's 4 eyes focused on Admiral Rivera with predatory intensity. "Admiral Rivera, are you suggesting that the Zephyrian Empire engages in massacres?" Rivera met the Emperor's gaze without flinching. "I'm stating, Your Majesty, that Imperial forces have killed thousands of human civilians for the crime of living on worlds that contained valuable minerals. If that doesn't qualify as massacre, perhaps you could explain what term you would prefer." Chen stepped in before the exchange could escalate further. "Your Majesty, we're not here to debate terminology or assign blame for past actions. We're here to establish a framework that will prevent future conflicts between our peoples." She activated her own display, showing detailed specifications of human military capabilities that hadn't been revealed during the Kepler engagement. Ships larger than the Retribution, weapon systems that made the asteroid demonstration look like a firecracker, defensive installations that could protect entire star systems from invasion. "This is what you would be facing in a prolonged conflict with humanity," she said simply. "Not the colonial militias your forces have been engaging, but the actual United Earth Navy operating at full capacity." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Every member of the Zephyrian delegation studied the display with growing comprehension of just how badly they had miscalculated human capabilities. "Science Advisor," Melketh whispered something to Emperor Zaxthul, who nodded gravely before responding. Captain Chen, these capabilities seem improbable for a species of your technological development level. Dr. Santos smiled politely. Your Majesty, human technological development has been focused on survival in a galaxy full of hostile species. When we realized that peaceful coexistence wasn't possible with certain civilizations, we adapted our research priorities accordingly. She brought up another display showing human industrial output over the past decade. What your intelligence networks missed was the scale of human manufacturing capability. Every attack on our colonies provided us with imperial technology to study. Every tactical engagement gave us insight into your military doctrine. Every month of conflict gave us additional time to prepare for exactly this kind of negotiation. Emperor Zaxthul studied the industrial data with the expression of someone who had just realized he'd been playing a game while his opponent had been preparing for war. What are your terms? He asked finally. Chen had been waiting for this moment since the meeting began. Complete withdrawal of Imperial forces from all human-controlled territories. Reparations for damages caused during the illegal occupation. Return of all human civilians currently held in Imperial facilities. And a formal non-aggression pact recognizing the sovereignty of human space. And in return, the Emperor asked, humanity agrees to respect existing Imperial territories and established Imperial authority in regions where you have legitimate historical claims, Chen replied. We're not interested in conquest, Your Majesty. We simply want to be left alone to develop our own civilization without interference. Admiral Kethavar spoke up from his position at the conference table. Captain Chen, what assurance does the Empire have that humanity won't use these advanced capabilities for aggressive expansion? Chen turned to face the Admiral who had learned firsthand about human military capabilities. Admiral, you've seen what happens when someone threatens human civilians. As long as the Empire respects human sovereignty, you'll never see those capabilities used against Imperial citizens. She paused, her expression becoming deadly serious. But if anyone attacks human civilians again, Admiral, the response won't be a diplomatic meeting on a neutral station. It will be the complete destruction of every military asset belonging to whatever species made that mistake. The chamber fell silent as the implications of her statement settled over the Zephyrian delegation. They had come here expecting to negotiate with a defeated enemy. Instead, they found themselves discussing terms of surrender with the most dangerous opponent the Empire had ever encountered. Emperor Zaxthul looked around the table at his advisors, reading the concern in their expressions before making his decision. 6 months after the Concordia Accords were signed, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Humanity Defense Station orbiting Earth. The massive installation stretched for 50 kilometers in every direction, its weapon systems and defensive grids clearly visible against the starfield beyond. Similar stations were being built around every major human world, part of a comprehensive defense network that would ensure no species ever again mistook human colonies for easy targets. Captain, Admiral Rivera approached from behind, carrying a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. The Zephyrian Empire has completed withdrawal from the last disputed system. All human civilians have been returned to their home colonies, and the first reparation payments have been transferred to the Colonial Reconstruction Fund. Chen nodded, watching as a squadron of human destroyers conducted patrol sweeps around Earth's outer system. Any indication that they're planning to test our resolve? None whatsoever, Rivera replied with satisfaction. Our intelligence networks indicate that Emperor Zaxthul has issued strict orders that Imperial forces are to avoid all contact with human vessels unless absolutely necessary for emergency assistance. Through the observation deck's transparent aluminum windows, Chen could see construction crews working on the next phase of the defense station's expansion. Weapon batteries capable of destroying battle fleets, sensor arrays that could detect cloaked vessels across multiple star systems, and manufacturing facilities that could produce entire fleets if necessary. What about the other species? Chen asked. Any reactions to the new galactic situation? Rivera consulted his data pad. The Crystalline Hive has requested formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Apparently, they're very interested in establishing trade agreements with a species powerful enough to make the Zephyrian Empire back down. He scrolled through additional reports. The Ethereal Collective has invited human ambassadors to their core worlds. The machine gods have transmitted mathematical proofs of friendship. Even the Voidwalkers have sent messages indicating respect for human territorial claims. Chen wasn't surprised. News of humanity's confrontation with the Zephyrian Empire had spread throughout the galaxy faster than light-speed communications could carry it. For 3,000 years, the Empire had been the undisputed master of this region of space. When a relatively young species forced them to retreat and pay reparations, every other civilization took notice. Dr. Santos wants to speak with you when you have a moment, Rivera continued. Something about long-term implications of our new galactic status. Chen found the chief science officer in the station's primary laboratory complex, where teams of researchers were analyzing captured Zephyrian technology and developing improvements to human defensive systems. Santos looked up from a holographic display showing comparative analyses of various species' technological capabilities. Captain, we need to discuss where humanity goes from here, Santos said without preamble. The demonstration at Kepler and the subsequent diplomatic agreement have fundamentally changed our position in the galaxy. She activated a galactic map showing the territories of major spacefaring civilizations. Before the Zephyrian conflict, humanity was seen as a minor species, with limited territorial claims and minimal military significance. Now we're being classified as a major galactic power. Chen studied the map, noting how human space was now marked with the same territorial indicators used for ancient civilizations, like the crystalline hive and the ethereal collective. That was always going to be the eventual outcome, Doctor. We just accelerated the timeline. Perhaps, Santos replied, but acceleration comes with consequences. Every species in the galaxy is now reassessing their relationship with humanity. Some, like the hive and the collective, are seeking alliance or at least friendly relations. Others are viewing us as a potential threat. She highlighted several regions on the galactic map. Intelligence indicates that the Void Dominion and the Shadow Fleet have begun coordinating their activities. They may be forming an alliance specifically to counter human expansion. Are we expanding? Chen asked pointedly. Not territorially, Santos admitted. But our defensive capabilities are growing exponentially. Every month we're building more ships, more stations, more advanced weapon systems. From their perspective, we're becoming increasingly dangerous. Chen considered this carefully. The decision to reveal humanity's military capabilities had been necessary to stop Zephyrian aggression. But Santos was right about the consequences. In demonstrating that humans could defend themselves, they had also demonstrated that humans could threaten others. What do you recommend, Doctor? Santos brought up another display showing proposed diplomatic initiatives. We need to establish clear parameters for human activity in the galaxy. Make it obvious that our military buildup is purely defensive, while creating opportunities for peaceful cooperation with other species, such as technology exchange programs with friendly civilizations, joint research projects on common challenges like stellar engineering and deep space exploration, cultural exchanges that demonstrate human values and intentions. Chen nodded thoughtfully, the goal being to convince other species that humans are more valuable as allies than as enemies. Exactly. The Zephyrian Empire made the mistake of viewing other species as resources to be exploited rather than potential partners. We need to avoid that same error. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Chen activated the communications console to see Admiral Rodriguez, commander of the Colonial Defense Fleet, appearing on the holographic display. Captain Chen, we're receiving distress signals from the Kepler 186 system. A species calling themselves the Hegemony has attacked the scientific research station there. They're demanding that all humans evacuate the system immediately or face orbital bombardment. Chen felt a familiar cold anger settling in her chest. Casualties? Unknown at this time, Captain. The research station has approximately 800 civilian personnel, including families of the researchers. Santos looked up from her displays with concern. Captain, Kepler 186 is well within established human space. This is a direct violation of our territorial sovereignty. Chen was already moving toward the command center. Admiral Rodriguez, dispatch the nearest patrol squadron to Kepler 186 immediately. Full combat readiness. Rules of engagement are weapons free for any vessel that refuses to withdraw from human space. Acknowledged, Captain. ETA to Kepler 186 is 4 hours. As they walked through the station's corridors toward the command center, Santos expressed her concerns. Captain, this could be exactly the kind of test that other species have been waiting for. How humanity responds to this challenge will set precedent for future interactions. Chen paused at the entrance to the command center, her expression grim but determined. "Doctor, let me make something very clear about the precedent we're going to set. Humanity doesn't start fights, but we absolutely finish them." She entered the command center where duty officers were already coordinating response to the Kepler 186 situation. "Communications, get me a priority channel to Earth Command. Tell them we have a situation that may require demonstration of human resolve." "Aye, Captain." Chen took her position at the central command station, studying tactical displays that showed human military assets throughout the local region. Since the Concordia Accords, humanity had expanded their defensive network significantly. What had started as protection against Zephyrian expansion had evolved into a comprehensive security system covering all of human space. "Captain," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony fleet at Kepler 186. They're demanding to speak with human leadership. Put them through." The main display activated to show a reptilian species with prominent cranial ridges and aggressive posturing. The alien commander's eyes burned with what appeared to be fanatical determination. "Humans," the creature began without preamble. "I am War Leader Skarks of the glorious hegemony. Your presence in this system violates ancient territorial claims. You will evacuate immediately or face the consequences." Chen stepped forward, her expression calm but her voice carrying absolute authority. "War Leader Skarks, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy. You are currently in violation of human sovereign space. You have one opportunity to withdraw your forces before we respond accordingly." Skarks's mandibles clicked in what appeared to be amusement. "Captain Chen, the hegemony claims this system by right of ancient discovery. Your species' recent technological developments do not supersede established territorial rights." "War Leader," Chen replied with dangerous calm, "you have 30 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures. After that time, any hegemony vessel remaining in this system will be considered a hostile target." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Chen turned to her tactical officer. "How long until our patrol squadron reaches Kepler 186? 3 hours and 47 minutes, Captain. And how long until we can have a full battle group in position?" 6 hours for a standard battle group. 12 hours for a full fleet deployment." Chen studied the tea. The hegemony war leader Skarks had exactly 29 minutes remaining on Captain Chen's ultimatum when the first human patrol squadron emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 186 system. Unlike the massive fleet that had confronted the Zephyrians, this was a modest force of 6 destroyers and 2 cruisers. To Skarks, it looked like a token response from a species that wasn't prepared for serious military action. He was catastrophically wrong. Commander Jessica Park, leading the squadron aboard the UES Defiance, opened communications with the hegemony fleet as soon as her ships achieved tactical formation. "Hegemony vessels, this is Commander Park of the United Earth Navy. You are in violation of human sovereign space and have been ordered to withdraw. Comply immediately or face the consequences." War Leader Skarks appeared on the communication display, his reptilian features twisted in what humans might have recognized as contempt. "Commander Park, your small squadron cannot hope to challenge the might of the glorious hegemony. We have 47 vessels under my command. Withdraw now and avoid unnecessary casualties." Commander Park consulted her tactical display, which showed detailed analysis of every hegemony ship in the system. Advanced human sensors had already identified their weapon systems, defensive capabilities, and optimal targeting solutions. What Skarks saw as overwhelming numerical superiority, Park saw as 47 targets waiting to be eliminated. "War Leader Skarks, you now have 10 minutes to begin withdrawal procedures. This is your final warning." Skarks's response was to order his fleet into attack formation. 47 hegemony warships ranging from destroyers to massive battle cruisers began converging on the human squadron, their weapon systems powered up as they prepared to demonstrate why the glorious hegemony had conquered 16 different species across their region of the galaxy. The demonstration lasted exactly 43 seconds. Commander Park had learned her tactical doctrine from the same military academy that had produced Captain Chen. When faced with an enemy that threatened human civilians and refused to withdraw when offered the opportunity, human naval doctrine was straightforward: overwhelming application of force to ensure the threat never repeated its mistake. The UES Defiance opened fire first, its primary weapon systems targeting the Hegemony flagship with precision that bordered on the supernatural. War leader Skarks had enough time to register that his shields were failing before his ship simply disintegrated. Around him, the remaining 7 ships of the human squadron engaged their targets with methodical efficiency. Advanced targeting systems locked onto multiple Hegemony vessels simultaneously, while weapons that drew power from controlled fusion reactions delivered devastating firepower across impossible ranges. Within 30 seconds, 23 Hegemony ships had been completely destroyed. Within 43 seconds, the remaining 24 vessels were disabled and drifting powerless through space. Not a single human ship had suffered any damage more significant than superficial scoring on their defensive plating. Commander Park opened a general communication channel to any surviving Hegemony personnel. "This is Commander Park to all Hegemony vessels. You attacked a civilian research station in human space and threatened the lives of 800 non-combatants, including children. By the authority of the United Earth Government and the Humanity Defense Act, you are all under arrest for acts of piracy and terrorism." She paused to let the implications sink in before continuing. "Any Hegemony vessel that attempts to flee this system will be destroyed. Any Hegemony personnel who resist arrest will be treated as enemy combatants. You have brought this situation on yourselves through your own aggressive actions." The response from the surviving Hegemony ships was immediate and unanimous surrender. 6 hours later, Captain Chen arrived in the Kepler 186 system aboard the UES Retribution, accompanied by a full battle group and several ships specially configured for prisoner transport and evidence collection. By that time, human boarding parties had secured all surviving Hegemony vessels and were conducting detailed interrogations of their crews. "Status report, Commander," Chen said as she materialized on the bridge of the Defiance via matter transporter. "All civilian personnel at the research station are safe and unharmed, Captain," Park reported. 23 Hegemony vessels destroyed, 24 captured intact. We've taken approximately 6,000 prisoners, including several high-ranking military officers who are proving very cooperative during interrogation. Chen nodded with satisfaction. "What have we learned about their motivations and capabilities?" Commander Park activated a holographic display showing intelligence gathered from captured Hegemony databases. "They're a militant species that has been expanding through this region for approximately 200 years. They've conquered 16 different civilizations using a combination of technological superiority and ruthless tactics." She highlighted several star systems on the galactic map. According to their military records, they've been monitoring the situation between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. When the Empire withdrew from human space, Hegemony leadership interpreted it as evidence that humans could be intimidated by shows of force. Chen studied the captured intelligence with growing understanding. They thought the Zephyrian withdrawal was a fluke rather than a demonstration of human capabilities. "Exactly, Captain. They saw an opportunity to claim valuable human territories before we could establish stronger defenses." Chen turned to examine the tactical aftermath displayed on the main screen. Debris from destroyed Hegemony ships drifted through space, while captured vessels sat under guard by human boarding parties. It was a sobering reminder that humanity's new status in the galaxy would inevitably attract challenges from species that misunderstood the nature of human defensive capabilities. "Commander, I want you to prepare a detailed after-action report for distribution to our intelligence networks. Every species in the galaxy needs to understand exactly what happened here and why." "Yes, Captain." "Should I include technical specifications of our weapons performance?" Chen considered this carefully. "Include enough detail to make the consequences of aggression against human civilians absolutely clear, but maintain classification of our most advanced capabilities. We want other species to understand the cost of threatening us, not necessarily how we inflict that cost." A communication alert interrupted their conversation. "Captain Chen," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving priority transmissions from 12 different species requesting immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership." Chen wasn't surprised. News of the Hegemony's defeat would spread through galactic communication networks within hours. A 47-ship fleet destroyed, or captured by 8 human vessels in less than a minute, would send a very clear message about humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. "Route those requests to the diplomatic corps," Chen ordered. Tell them to prioritize any species currently engaged in territorial disputes with neighbors. They may be looking for human mediation or protection. She turned back to Commander Park. The galaxy is beginning to understand that humanity doesn't just defend our own territories. We defend our principles. Any species that targets civilians or engages in unprovoked aggression now knows they'll face the same response the hegemony received. Through the observation windows of the Defiance, they could see human recovery teams working to rescue any survivors from the destroyed hegemony vessels. Despite the decisive nature of their military response, humans still maintained their commitment to preserving life whenever possible. "Captain," Park said quietly, "do you think this will finally convince other species to leave us alone?" Chen watched the rescue operations for a moment before responding. "Commander, I think this will convince intelligent species to approach humanity with respect and peaceful intentions. As for the others," she gestured toward the debris field that had once been the glorious hegemony fleet, "the others will learn the same lesson the hegemony just learned. The galaxy is a big place, but it's not big enough for anyone who thinks they can prey on human civilians." 6 months later, the Galactic Trade Consortium officially recognized humanity as a major spacefaring power, with full territorial sovereignty and defensive rights. The hegemony survivors, after completing their prison sentences for piracy and terrorism, returned to their home territories with detailed reports about human military capabilities that ensured no other species in their region would make similar strategic errors. And throughout the galaxy, a new understanding emerged among spacefaring civilizations. The humans were no longer the vulnerable colonists who could be easily displaced or conquered. They had become something far more dangerous and far more valuable. They had become the species you definitely wanted as friends, and absolutely never wanted as enemies. The skies were no longer safe for anyone who threatened humanity. But for those who approached in peace, the skies had never been more welcoming.